a couple of things real quick. So um, I'm gonna I'm gonna share um, I'm gonna share my screen for a little bit, and then uh, we're gonna have three people: Terrence Walker, Ty Allen, and Sharonda Richardson, or Eccentric, are gonna be joining. So those are my guests. So if you see them come on about
Okay.
3:15 or a little bit before, that's who they
Okay.
are.
Gotcha. Thanks.
All right. So let's see. Let's see. All right. So let's see. Boom. Yes, we can. Okay. All right. So everyone, today's session is called The Way You Work, and it's built on a premise that I really want to kind of have a chance to kind of really get into. It starts with this quote: "Whatever you go into, you have to go in there to be the best. There are no formulas. It's all about passion and honesty and hard work. It might look glamorous, but it takes a lot of hard work. The blessing with the arts is you can do it forever." From Hugh Masekela. The reason why I want to start with this quote is about this idea of best, and I want to start by saying that best isn't competitive, but the best version of you. The whole thing about this is about the way you work. And it's the idea of the fact that how you work and how you move and how you go about your work is as important as the work that you do. Um, so, what I want to do in that um, is I want to play this video real quick. And this video, oh, I'll tell you about how I came about this video. Uh, Hold on. Uh, can everyone hear that? Tamika, can you hear that video?
Can't
Okay.
hear you.
So let's go back because my silly self forgot to share the sound. Let's do this again. All right, let's try this again.
1998, Fortune
Okay.
magazine named a relatively unknown bank in Columbus, Georgia, Synovus Bank, the best company to work for in the United States. 57 consecutive quarters of double-digit profit growth, 15,000% growth in employees in 10 years from 1988 to 1998, a turnover rate 1/5 their industry average. So I'm intrigued. And they beat the pants off of all their major competitors in every market they're in. So I call up the CEO. I said, "Can I come and visit your bank?" He says, "Yes." 3 months later, I'm sitting in his office in Columbus, Georgia. I said, "Jimmy, before I meet anybody else in your bank, tell me, why is this the best company to work for in America? Why are you so successful?" And I love it. In his strong Southern drawl, he said, John, he said, "The secret of Synovus is the power of love." I said, "Jimmy, I'm from up north. Could you say that again?" He said, "John, the secret of Synovus is the power of love." He said, "You ask anybody in this bank why they love working here and why it's so great, they'll tell you it's love." He said, "We love each other. We love the customers. We know each other's kids, each other's grandchildren." He said, "One part of this company cries, the whole company cries with them." He said, "You ask anybody the secret of this bank, they'll tell you the power of love." Gave me a badge, set me loose. I'm wandering around the bank and asking people, "What's the secret of the bank?" They said, "The power of love." "What's the secret of the bank?" "The power of love." But everywhere I go, I saw these two numbers on the wall, 100/0. Now, at first I thought, now this is and honest bank. I mean, they put it right up front where you can see it. You give us 100% of your money, you get nothing in return. You know, they never laugh at TD at that. I don't know why, you know. Their customers laugh. I just don't know why they don't laugh. But it's obviously not it, because it's on badges, it's on walls, it's on desks. So finally I asked a teller in one of the branches, what's the 100-0? And she said, oh, that's easy. She said, the 100 stands for 100% responsibility. You never say it's not my job. You never say I'd have been on time if it wasn't for the traffic. You never say this would be a great company if the CEO would just do his or her job. 100% of the time, you take responsibility for the success of yourself and the success of this company. You know it's up to each one of us to keep this company great. She said, and the 0 stands for 0 excuses for not giving great service or great quality in every single interaction with every single person. There is never an excuse not to be your absolute best. Now, I ran back to the CEO's office. I waited to see him. I said, Jimmy, wait a minute. You told me the secret of the bank's the power of love. What's with the 100-0 stuff? And I love it. He didn't even look up. He said, well, I forgot to tell you, it's tough love. But you know what? I think Jimmy Blanchard nailed it. He nailed it. If you want to create a highly engaged business, I would ask you right now, do you have those two things in your office? First of all, do you have the 100-0? We'll talk about the love in a minute. Do you have the 100-0? Do 100% of the people who work for you know what's expected of them? Do they know what you stand for? Do they know what you're shooting for in terms of the kind of experience that customers are supposed to have? Is there even one person on your team who is not a great ambassador for your business, that you are either coaching up or coaching out? And I'll tell you right now, if you want to do something to create engagement in your team, if you've got even one person in your business who is either in the wrong job for their skills or is simply not a good ambassador for your business, one of the best things you can do for your business is when you leave this room, make a commitment that you will either coach them up or you'll coach them out if they're not capable or willing to do that.
All right. So there's a reason why I showed you this, and I'll tell you why. Because I was introduced to this video, and I was working with an organization that serves Black and brown women entrepreneurs. And this was the beginning of work I did to develop a new mantra for the business, which was centered around community or nothing, right? It was that that community is what we're about. That all of our work and efforts were in service to the community, and that was always going to be put front and center on nothing. Like there was nothing else that mattered. It was making sure that the folks that we identify as being in need got the service and support that they need, because we wanted to let them know they had folks on their side. So I kind of wrote our mantra, and this was the way that the organization moved. The reason why I wanted to do this and tied to this idea of best is in this 100-0 is in this conversation of how we move, is a couple of things about this. One is we are in position, and you've already experienced this. I've had conversations with some of you about the projects that you're moving forward and the work that you're doing. You never know who you're going to have to sit at the table and deal with. And there's so many opportunities and so many moments to be able to cuss people out, tell people off, be done with it, frustrated, not respond, not want to engage, not want to show up, not want to sit at the table, not want to walk in. But one of the things about it is you have to consider that if you don't, who will? And that's not to consider the off your. This is not. I don't believe in martyrdom, and I don't believe in sacrifice. I believe in purpose, and I believe in possibility and opportunity, which means that I'm not telling you to give yourself over to someone for the sake of moving forward a project. No, what I'm saying is that either believe in the fact that you are equipped to navigate that room, or figure out how you can equip yourself to be able to handle that room before you go in it, right? But don't not go in it because you're irritated or frustrated with the people in the room, because they're just the means to an end. And all of the things that they're making aggravating and frustration about the work that you're doing is about them and not you. And once you've gotten them out the way and moved the next step forward, they're no longer going to matter. They're going to disappear, right? The only folks who will continue to be in your way are folks who do not want to see you succeed at all. Everybody else is just being who they are. It's a momentary disruption. It's a momentary aggravation that will go away. And then what I know and what I know and what I know is that once you succeed, the same folks will be the first to clap, congratulate you, and stand beside you so they can be a part of the recognition and the success. Every time, right? Every time. So this 100 and 0 has become my own personal way of moving for a long time because I'm not going to make excuses. We're going to navigate, and everything that I navigate through equips me for handling the next thing. And what happens is my ability to keep pushing through these situations and know and be able to expect, oh, I've seen you before. Okay, I know how to do, I know how we're going to do this. Let's take a step back. You can see the surprise on people's face when you don't respond, when you are able to shift energy, shift moods, redirect certain things, and all of a sudden you become their favorite person in the world because you know how to put up with their BS. Next thing you know, they're your greatest advocates, right? It's that whole mantra where our big mamas used to tell us you can do a lot further with sugar than with you know what I'm saying? It's a whole lot better with sugar than you can, right? It's that idea of, and once again, I'm not talking about shucking and jiving, right? Because these kind of folks don't respect that. They don't respect kissing ass. They do not respect shucking and jiving. That'll actually make them toy with you more because they like the idea of it. You're feeding an ego and a power dynamic that honestly sometimes when we're dealing in the communities and organizations we have, the folks that we're interacting with don't really have any power, which is why they're such buttholes in the first place. So if you feed it, you're going to give them a sense of power that they really don't have, a sense of authority that they really don't have. It's this thing of it's the level of being your best self and coming through and being able to push through and negotiate. Some people need you to struggle with them before they believe that we're in this together because you never understand the circumstances of them and their organization, right? And so what you end up doing is you can turn resistance to allyship real quick. So that's one part of this. The other is about the folks that you associate with on your side. Bringing folks along and having folks with you because you want to help is great. As long as they understand the mission and they understand the assignment. If they don't, then those folks gotta wait, right? We can't allow our heart, all right? We cannot allow our heart to get in the way of our opportunity. Because putting ourselves in proper position with the opportunity means that we can ultimately help the person who our heart was feeling for, but we're going to be able to do it in a more effective way. So the folks who can go with me now are the folks who understand the assignment. The folks who can go with me later are the folks who will see how it plays out, and then maybe you'll understand it then. But we got to be real careful about who we bring with us. So that 100 and 0 is also about who rolling with us. Like, look, without me having to continue to always be there and articulate it, do you understand what we're doing? So that I don't have to stop to be able to put fires out you caused on my behalf because you didn't understand what this was about. If so, let's go. If not, you gotta wait. You gotta wait. I gotta earn some latitude and I gotta build some I gotta build some capital here before I can allow you to start tripping, like, for any reason. And so that's one of these things about that I wanted to kind of point out and kind of bring up. The other thing is
1998.
There's another aspect of this that I'm pretty sure all of you, and been talking and hearing about your projects that I feel like you've been able to do to even be able to move your projects to where they are, is to make it meaningful. This is another aspect of like this the way you work. It says sense of worth, sense of care, and sense of safety. These are things you probably bring into a space that open doors for you, and I'm naming them, right? Is that people feel like they have a sense of worth because when you move, you recognize them, you make them feel seen and heard. There's an energy. People say, I love when you come around. You just got such a wonderful presence. It's because not only do you do the work the right way, it's also because of how you make people feel when you show up to do it. Right? It's even when folks are tripping, that ability to be able to work through the tripping and still get the work done makes them feel like, oh, you saw me. Like whatever I was tripping through, you pushed through. Okay. And then there's a sense of care when you take in on people, like ask people how you doing, remember a name, remember the last conversation. All these things create a sense of care, and it makes people warm over to you, right? And they just want you around. And when they see you, they're happy to see you, even if they don't get to talk to you, because they know if you in the room, there must be something good about this space, because they know that you wouldn't be in this space unless something was right. So there are times where people feel good when you show up and they're uncomfortable in the space, like, oh, you here? Okay, this I might could ease my concern. And that's where that sense of safety is, because those same folks are willing to, I know that if I have a problem in this space, I'm gonna come talk to you. It's the same thing when you're working with an organization and there's that person who comes back to you and be like, they're not gonna tell you, but this is what's going on. We had a meeting last week. Let me tell you what happened in the meeting. That's because there's a sense of safety with you, right? They understand that this is a reciprocal relationship. They're going to help you be successful because it's necessary, and they understand it matters, but also that you are going to take care about them as you move. They know you're not going to run, tell that someone told you anything. They know you're not going to blow up the spot, but you're going to move in a way with that information that's going to be best for everybody. So you got folks who are going to do that. And sometimes at multiple levels. There's an organization where the ED, the head of the organization will stop you and be like, this is why this is taking so long. I know you guys will be there, just so you know, but we're going to get it straight. And there's that assurance, but it's about the way you move. And so there's these four things that I want to kind of keep in mind, is that being mindful for yourself, your own personal mindfulness, but also because it opens up and unlocks your sense of other people. Some of you, your projects involve this already. Intentionally seek and foster awareness and understanding. Hey, man, taking a couple of extra minutes to make sure people understand, that you will not be surprised, and I'm pretty sure you've explained this, the number of times that I have to have 2 extra rounds of conversation with a person only to find out that their only opposition to why they're being so difficult about what I'm trying to get forward and move forward in the decision we're trying to make is because they can't grasp it. And until they can grasp it, they're going to keep being in opposition and won't move. An extra 5 to 7 minutes later, oh, I get it. Yeah. All right. So can we move forward now? Oh, yeah, sure. Okay, cool. John.
Yeah, I had a question about what you literally just said. So my question is to kind of like avoid those kind of conversations as best you can, right? Would you then recommend like making like a guide about like what it is that you expect from them, or like a program guide, like a guidebook essentially? Because I actually did have a similar exchange with someone, and with another person, they said, well, why don't you just make like a guidebook that lists out all your expectations, all the roles that you need, like everything, so that it's not any confusion. And at first I was like, well, I don't know, like, should that be a thing? Because, should I give away all quote unquote the secrets of my program? You know what I mean?
Mhm.
But, you saying what you just said, made me think about that. So I'm curious I'm curious to know what your opinion is about that.
Yes, my great question. Don't do it. The key thing about this is you, right? This is why this is the way you work. One, and that notion about the secret sauce is it's your secret sauce and you're the chef. So that that extra layer of understanding and necessity, is always good to have certain things put down. But I'm a strong believer in, don't do that, because the more you put down and the more you direct people to a page and to a text, it loses everything about you that really makes it matter and make it understandable. There's a certain level of this that involves you, which is why I'm having this conversation, because it requires a little bit of extra time and energy, but it matters more, because what's going to make it stick and make it really root is you. Folks are going to want to rock with whatever mantra or whatever approach or whatever policy or whatever because of you. They'll they'll take, when they move forward, they'll take that information with them, but it's gonna the way they're gonna comprehend it because of you. So I think it's a great question that you asked. So yes, to a certain extent, but there's a part of it that needs to have come out your mouth, and they need to remember it coming from you. not from a document, um, because that's what's going to make it matter. Um, and it's what's gonna make them your ambassador. All right. So last two things, and we got some guests on that I want to explain why they're there and the conversation we're gonna have. All right. Um, this goes into establish and maintain relationships built on reciprocal relationship of worth, care, consideration, and safety. And part of that is why I'm saying like some of this has to be with you, because of what that means, and engage and hold space for meaningful discourse and feedback. Like some of you already take time to stop and have a conversation with some, even though you might not have a whole lot of time to do so. That extra moment matters, and that person will never forget it. I've had folks come back to me and tell me that, like in the midst of work, you stopped and did this thing. I never forgot that, and that's why I then told someone else and said they need to rock with you. They need to come work with you. You need to be reached out to. I brought your name up in a space and in a room that's going to help you because of that moment that we had. So these things are like you are the thing, you are the driver of this thing, and it matters. It's always going to matter. Like I said, it's always good to be able to have certain things down that are clear and in print, but only to a certain extent, folks, because when it's your work, people need to hear to also be able to know it and hear it in their heads and your voice, because you are the initial ambassador and advocate for this. Um, so what we're going to do um, in this is we're going to have a panel, because there's a lot more to sustainability and success than being good at what you do. You must also be clear and intentional in how you go about the work you do, and having an understanding that can open doors and bring new partnerships. Uh, that can help you bring new things that couldn't be realized before. And in that, what we have is we've got some folks who are on here. Um, and I'm going to introduce them in the conversation that we are going to have. And give me one moment, because I'm going to pin myself. Um, so before we do this, I just want to make that was a great question, John. Does anybody else have any questions thus far? Uh, thoughts, comments, experiences, anything you want to add about this while we getting into this?
I just wanted to say, Dasan, thank you, because this has already been a good conversation, and just some good reminders. Um, and just to John's point, what he brought up, I think what he was saying was good, but just kind of going back to what you were saying, I think having the person who is the creator of such things or whatnot give voice to it is helpful. I think also having those that deck or those other assets can be helpful for people to like revisit the conversation and that voice afterwards, should they need to review something. That's what I've also seen is helpful, is like you've given voice to it, but they may need to go back and reference something. And so like having some of those assets or documents that you have already created can also be helpful for follow-up conversation or any questions that they may have once they leave the conversation that you've already voiced or whatnot.
Yeah, John.
Yeah, thank you for that, Marcus. As well, I think part of the reason why I have considered it is just like, should there be an event where like last minute I can't show up, but I still want the event to take
Hmm.
place, they
Hmm.
still have that guide to say like, hey, this is what you need to do in the event that I'm not there. Um, or at least that's how I think about it, not so much as like, cause like I said, initially it was like, oh, I don't know, because uh, and you'll excuse my French when I say this, but as artists, we're sensitive about our shit, right?
Hmm.
Like we're very sensitive about the things that we create and the things that we put out there for everybody to see. But I also have recognized through conversations I've had with my partners where it's like, there may be a time where like I'm not there or I still want the program to happen or like something may
Hmm.
happen, blah blah blah. And I want them to understand like this is what it is. And so just having like what Marcus said, having that guide to go back and say, okay, we need to make sure we have this, because he can't show up.
Yes, great point. And we're gonna get into this with this panel I've convened because I know they've got thoughts. But great point, and I'm gonna come back to that, John. Thank you for that. And I'm gonna fill tie in. I know Eccentric and T Walker can probably hear this, what the conversation is. So Tamika.
Answer because I was thinking, yes, write it down so you can refer back to it of the expectations. But I will have a twofold question for that. Are you referring to partners and co-collaborators and administrators? Or are you referring to participants? Because like in my program now, my participants are starting to monkey around.
Mhm,
And it's like I didn't really necessarily have set expectations or written expectations for them,
mhm,
except in the beginning, and I didn't have it written down, but I also haven't done this before. So
mhm,
now, when moving forward with the program like this, I will have written expectations, and so therefore, in the middle and the end, you can't say I didn't say. So
mhm,
that's where it's good to have it written down.
mhm. So one of the things about this is that y'all have brought up some really good things. So there's your people, right, on your side in terms of the folks who are helping you do work. There's the people you're serving, clients, participants, depending on what kind of thing you're doing. And then there are the folks you're collaborating with, the business who's providing the funding, who you're partnering with, who is the person who hired you. Um, and so all of those have ways, there's ways of working in each situation, which is what we're going to really talk about in this panel. And there should be an understanding of how you want to work in each situation, right? So you've probably heard folks talk about agreements, like expectations and agreements, like participants, like
For
there's
SOPs, right?
yeah. So there's a collective
That's
agree. Here are our agreements, and this is what we're going to agree to, right? So if you're participating here, how we level set what's expected of you in the space, and then these are our agreements about what the space means. And the thing about this is that it also is an opportunity to make sure these things are in line with your mission and your brand and what you represent, because that consistency is important, all right? Because that's also about the way you move. Then there is your team, and there are like, look, here's how we do this. Here's your basic standard operating procedure. Like this is the guide that says this is how we rock. Piece I was talking about is there like the secret sauce to what makes it work is how you move with it, right? And so there's what's on text, which is the logistics and the steps and all the things, but then there's also an understanding and a way of executing it that also needs to be conveyed. And folks will be able to develop their own version of that secret sauce, but it starts with your understanding of it. So there's that. And then, of course, the folks that you collaborate with, there's an understanding of how to sit in those rooms with them as well. So, um, John, and then I'm going to introduce this panel. Let's get some of this brilliance involved in this.
Yeah,
As well.
so just last point. So to kind of answer Tamika's question, what I was referencing in terms of my guidebook was for my partners. Because I've had specific partners come to me and say like, hey, we want to make sure that like we're doing everything right. And also like, what is the expectation, right? So that's what I have done. But something to kind of like work around that when it comes to like guest expectations, what I do is that I have like either a director's note or just like a list of bullet points in my program that says like, hey, these are the expectations, we're gonna come, this is a safe space, this is a safe environment, so on, so on, so on, so on, so on. To kind of like make it easier to understand, instead of like giving guests like a whole like book or a pamphlet or something. Just making those expectations, like having a separate section within my program that says these are the expectations when you come into this space.
Um, Great, thank you, John and Arisha. I saw your
Oh,
hand.
no, yes, I was just gonna say, and I thank you so much, John, for sharing your process. Um, for me, it's like I had some of those things in place, and we did have, like you said, the secret sauce, the conversation. They got the buy-in from folks, but then there was also an element of that where people were like, "Oh, I didn't know this was going to be, other people would see this outside of us, or this would be used to generate community conversation." So that's why I was saying in the chat, like some people decided this once they heard all of that, that this actually wasn't a good fit for them. And then like some people heard it and they were like people who I wasn't expecting to work with that came forward and said, I heard you talking about this and I think this might be good for me. I want to participate. How do I get on? So I was just applauding, saying, all of this, just listening to everybody has really been helpful because I was having a little bit of imposter syndrome because some people dropped out and all of that was going on. So thank y'all for sharing. So I feel like okay, I'm doing something right. So anyway, that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. No problem. That's what we're here for. Uh, and yeah, so come on, Ty and Sharonda. We got Sharonda Richardson, also known as Eccentric, Ty Allen. I'm going to introduce them, and we're gonna continue this conversation because
Can
what
I
I want,
first say to Arisha, losing people early is a blessing.
yeah,
Don't,
ain't that
don't, don't, more times than not, you will be
Oh my
happier that they left early than later.
Exactly. Thank you. That's why I was like, oh my God, I'm okay. Yes, because I don't need you to be holding this space.
Or holding you back, either way.
Right.
right?
Messing off my time.
Right.
So there's three guests because this fifth session involves a panel, and I got three folks here that I wanted to come and have this conversation. And the conversation's already gotten rich already, and I know that they got thoughts and ideas around all of this because of the experiences they've had. We have Sharonda Richardson, aka Eccentric. Um, of Be Eccentric, who is an amazing poet and writer and performance artist. She's also been involved in theater, but she's also an amazing organizer who has built a business. She coordinates artists going in to do programs in schools. She has worked with city, county, and state government in terms of delivering arts programs, arts councils, everything from showcases and musical events to full-fledged multi-day festivals. And she's in Pompano Beach, Florida now, but on her way to Georgia to and but has been someone who also has been huge in being able to, is a huge advocate of like how you operate and move in spaces. And also having folks from different pedigree, because one thing that I love about Sharonda is that she has had an amazing ability to be able to really build collaboration and partnership, but also it has not had to lose the fact that she is who she is and where she's from and has learned how to be able to be in these spaces, but be very authentic. And I think folks love her for that, right? We have Ty Allen, who is in Brooklyn, New York. Is from Yonkers, but lives currently in Brooklyn, and is also an amazing artist, jazz vocalist, music producer, and poet, an award-winning poet as well. Who also produces a number of events, from musical events, educational events, uh, but also has been involved in things like political campaigns and city planning, all as an artist. So in terms of the scope of work with national and international organizations, and also, well, New York has a whole different thing. So ain't no city and county, but like boroughs, boroughs and things, whatever they be having up there. Um, but has been able to really, and as well as academic institutions, have really been able to do some amazing things. And then we got T. Walker, who is once again an amazing artist, poet, MC, uh, songwriter, and performing artist who, um, from rural North Carolina, who partly because um, has also done some amazing work in building a number of platforms, educational spaces for young folks, has thrown art exhibitions as well as partnered. He's a part of a group of folks who are with Line Water. I don't know if you know anything about that, but it's water from spring on property, on indigenous property, run and held here in North Carolina. Has also run all kinds of cultural arts and educational programming. Uh, just been able to do some amazing work and build some amazing partnerships from here all the way down through the South as well. So folks who have had to figure this thing out that we're talking about. So those are my three panelists, man. I'm excited to have all of y'all here. I gotta introduce folks the way they need to be introduced. You know what I'm saying? I want folks to know.
Seemed like you did a whole lot just there.
I want, this is a beautiful cohort of folks, and I just want them, who are on this journey as well and are here because of the support they've gotten from the Faith Conference Center, but doing great projects. We've got folks who are doing, who are working in particular communities and publishing works. We've got folks who are in film. We've got Derek, who is doing One Love Festival and is up here. And so we've got folks doing, major events, who are doing film and engagement activities, who are working with different underserved communities and helping them express themselves in their artwork. Like, it's a range of folks who are doing this work and also elevating and raising awareness around HIV issues. So I want to start, this conversation is about the way you move. And one of the things that y'all came in on that we were talking about was the levels and layers of like how you move and how your folks move, and like building that understanding and holding and like maintaining that understanding. So the first question I want to ask before we get to that, I just want to kind of mention that so that we can keep that in mind. So I know you got thoughts, but to start simply by having each of you talk about how important learning how to move has been, and then what you believe has come, like what has been made easier as you have recognized like that the way you handle and go into situations matter. So those are the two questions. Like, what are your initial thoughts about this thing, that how you move is important, and then what are some of the things that you've seen that you've been able to accomplish because you came to understand that how you move and the way that you move is important. So whoever would like to start.
I'll kick it off.
Okay.
Learning how to move has been a very important thing for me because I've had spaces and times where I wish I had somebody that was doing the marketing, or had somebody that was making the connections, or had somebody that was handling the financial portions and finding grants and different things of that nature. And in the process of me learning how to do these things myself, I knew how to find the people, that I needed. But I also, figured out better ways to make these connections. And I think it's important to have that knowledge and information, and some of the natural things that I do, I also learned that everybody doesn't do this. So I came in, as you were speaking on how you engage with people, remembering people's names. I've learned how important those type of things are in relationships, because I know how it felt when people did the opposite with me. And I'm like, oh, I thought we did something great. You don't even remember me. You don't even remember this thing. And it's like, well, I've got so many things going on, and I understand that. But I also recognize in the relationships that I build with people and the way I'm able to connect with them in those ways, our relationships have been stronger. The things that I'm willing to do for them, were different, and the things they were willing to do for me. And that's always key, to me, in just doing things in general, because I want to work with people that have the same intention and energy, in whatever it is that we're doing, or challenged with. I want to know that we're in alignment, with that. So learning just how people operate in general has been important. Learning how people connect in different spaces, when it comes to arts, learning different spaces of communications, learning how to operate in different spaces. That's been key to me. But it's also important because, like, as an educator, I have, students and people that look up to me. So I also am in a space to be able to teach them, because I actually learned it actively, as well. So that's what learning, it is that's my experience with it.
Thank you, T. Go ahead, Eccentric.
For me, I think learning how to move was important because it allowed me to set my boundaries. Um, as I started learning how to move, it also allowed me to set my expectations as well, not just my boundaries, but the people who I choose to work with or who I choose to partner with or put my name on. So my team knows that if they do certain things, that is a reflection of me. And certain things I don't I don't really play about. So learning how I wanted to move, how I wanted my brand to go, how I wanted to represent myself was super important so that, to your point, Dasan, that I could create an authentic experience wherever I went, wherever I go. I can always just show up as myself because I learned how to navigate and move through those spaces. Or tailor my work to their spaces without compromising who I was. Learning how to move also was learning that all money ain't good money, that some opportunities is just not gonna work, that I can't mold and fit myself into every space because I'm afraid that another opportunity might not come. So it was extremely important to learn these things. Importance does not mean easy. It does not mean that it was an easy process to learn. It does not mean that I didn't get it wrong sometimes. But what it does mean is that in growing a business, it's just something that I had to buckle down and focus on and learn earlier, sooner than later, if I was going to be successful in what I was trying to do. So, yeah, so that's kind of what it was. For me, it was all like learning how to move as myself in any space so that I never have to send a representative. So I never have to be somebody I'm not. So I never have to compromise who I was, and my work and the quality of that work wouldn't diminish, and whipping that team in shape in terms of, if you want to work with me, this is what we do and this is what we don't do. Don't let me hear that again. And then I also look at when I hear people move, I think about Beyonce a lot. The woman barely says anything about anything until it's time for her to decide how she wants to move with whatever is in place. And I think she never has to speak for herself. Everybody else always speaks for her because of the way she moves, because of the way she's learned to move within her brand and within herself. And when she does move, it's very calculated and it's very specific to a goal in mind. So to me, I feel like that's very important to make because it doesn't always mean you can't say something or do something. It just means then what's the purpose in saying it or doing it. And I think learning how to move helps you out with that.
Oh, thank you, Ty.
I'm not sure where to go with this. So you answered almost every part of the question. Um, if I was to add something, there's a level, if you're learning, the level of humility you have to have. There's walking into these conversations, being humble, wanting to learn is as important as anything else. Is because um, when you're working in small organizations, you take on a lot of responsibility. I've often asked people to try to work for larger companies first, if you can. If you can get to that, to see how the processes work. Because when you're working in small organizations, you cut corners because one person is doing 3 jobs, one person is doing 5, one person is doing 9. And if you're lucky, you might end up doing 2 jobs if you're lucky. But when you can see the whole picture from a larger organization, but then the problem with larger organizations, sometimes they can be oppressive. So there's this balance of wanting to learn how the systems work, but then not learn the oppressive aspect of the systems. Take back what you learn, but the good thing of those systems are bringing it back to you. So there's humility to learn from others who can teach you. There's opportunity to learn how the larger systems work. And then hopefully when you come out of all that learning, you don't repeat some of the oppressive aspects of the larger systems. So you can help your people, but not help your people from a standpoint that is oppressive or steeped in white supremacy, which often happens when we go into these larger institutions that are used to being paternalistic rather than helpful to us.
One of the things that I think is also important to note is is, and I'd love for y'all to respond to this, both in just, your own personal approach or personal experiences, and having a sense of the work that people are used to when you go into it.
What do you mean?
Like, so what's been done before? Like, who's been here before? What has been the experience before you walk into that working experience? Like, are you, because I know all of you have walked into situations where you've not only had to do your work, but you've also had to put out fires and repair because of the experience that's happened with folks who weren't you, but who previously tried or were
Oh,
contracted or hired to do the work that you did before. So, like, what is
okay.
how does it, because I think that's an important thing for everyone on the call to understand as well, that when you're going into spaces, even in terms of your participants and audience, when you're in a community, they've had a particular experience as well as the folks that you're being invited to partner or contracted to work with. Folks who are writing the checks have had a previous experience. So how's it been to navigate those expectations?
So I guess I'm gonna segue off my own thing. The humility part is really big when working in a community. Um, I'm a New Yorker, and so this is always, I'm using the New Yorker part. There's always the assumption that New Yorkers are carpetbaggers because we are aggressive, we're overly assertive, we can be blunt. And Sharonda is trying not to laugh when she's saying it. I say this, and I understand why, and I get it. And then you take that and then over intellectualize a lot of things. You have to, I don't like using these large extreme statements, but you have to really walk into a situation, any situation, and find out what the legacy information or the legacy aspect of that situation is. What is happening here? I mean, I'm doing a project now in California where I was asking about what happened a month ago, 5 months, 6 months ago, last year, what we would do, who was working in the position 2 years ago, because I want to know as much as I can about what, not just the challenges, what were the beautiful things that were happening. You could walk into a scenario, and oftentimes we come in as firemen with the hose out when no one wanted you to put out a fire, but just put some water in the pool. That's all we wanted. Bring that hose down there and put some water in the pool so we go get a good swim. But you don't know that if you don't ask the questions during your prep or when your prep prior to taking the position or your prep after taking a position or a job. And I'm always talking to my younger cats to really walk in to learn first about a scenario, a situation, a company, organization, know as much as you can, and constantly ask questions. Constantly ask questions. Even when you think you know the answer, it might not be the right answer for this organization or the right answer for the scenario and how they would base it. And you may even change it one day. But first find out where they are to learn how you can make these changes.
Yeah, piggybacking off Ty, I was gonna say you can't come in there like a I don't know the good word, bro, like the problem with gentrification is typically people come into spaces and they only ask the community what they want. Or they ask them, but they don't really mean what you want. They just want to act like they care about what you want. So never come up in a person's space, city, house, all that, assuming that you know what they want because they hired you to do a certain job. Otherwise, you are the gentrifier. Like you have to come and assess the community in which you're serving. For me, first, it's not client center first. It's the community in which I'm serving first because that's who my client hired me to serve. So community first, client second, and then your thoughts third. So you have to come in and be respectful of the spaces. So if I go to somebody, if I come to Charlotte and I'm gonna do an event, right? Oh, Charlotte has seen a bunch of events, right? So it's my job to not say, oh, I know what I'm doing, I know all this, I've been doing this for how many years, the way I'm from. It's your job to come in, offer bread, offer water, sit down, talk it over, find out what people need before you start to address issues. Because how can you address something that you don't know? Pompano's needs are not Charlotte's needs, and Charlotte's needs are not New York needs. So I like that Ty hit on that because that's where I was going. You have to assess the situation first before you assume that your expertise should tell every space what it needs. Otherwise, you leave that community feeling locked out. You don't create bridges that enhance relationships. You kind of just become another person that's coming to tell them what they need and what they want. And so for me, I always just kind of assess whether that's by community surveying, whether that's by previous attendance records, whether that's by previous curation and programming that they offer. So that to me is the most important part when I go into any space, is making sure that I make myself available and do what I can to hear the community and their needs.
Honestly, that those were the answers, because that main thing
Yeah.
is to assess that space, and in assessing the space, like I've been fortunate enough to be able to walk into spaces where, just for example, Josephus has done a lot of great things here in Greensboro when it comes to poetry. So there are people that have been more receptive because they're like, okay, we know what this looks like, what can be done. And then, I've been able to go into places and ask questions. Well, what does it look like if we were to have this? How do you feel like the students will receive it? And we do surveys. You have to assess, spaces and situations. And I feel like that's where what she said about you being the gentrifier is key, because I'm here in North Carolina right now, just in experience, there's somebody that's trying to come here to do an event that I'm like, listen, these are some of the people that you should connect with, and they're trying to do it their own way. And I'm not a person that speaks negative on anything, but I am also seeing parts of it not hit where they would like for it to be. And I'm like, you can't come to North Carolina and just do it the way that they do it in Atlanta. There are some things that we need, from those aspects, but you need to connect with the actual people, and I've been grateful to, again, be able to go in some spaces because of connections that I've made, because of so many things I've done independently, that I can come to people with things and we assess and break down what parts the community has enjoyed in the future, what things they are seeking and looking for. So essentially, they said it, ask the people, like she said, community first, so you got to tap in with the people, tap in with the spaces, and that's key to me, especially when it comes to finding sponsorship, because I'm like, okay, what type of spaces or things or businesses or small companies are interested in the things that I'm doing, who already sponsors these type of things, because I feel like that research is the same way. Who can I connect with that aligns in mission? And then we can go to a space where the mission is aligned and open, for that as well.
Beautiful. And we got a question. Uh, and and so, but before I get to Marcus' question, I just want to say this one thing. One of the things for the cohort is part of this conversation about community and assessment is because the projects you're doing, I keep stressing this, are the communities that you're operating in, that is a case study and a model for effective work that you can do anywhere else. And part of it is by doing the assessment means that you can begin to adapt that program in a way that it fits wherever you're doing it, which becomes a case study for you to be able to do it elsewhere. Because not only did the program work, but the way you did it and ran it and built into that community worked. You're going to get a stellar recommendation for wherever else you want to go. And folks in industries talk to other folks in industries, and sometimes that good word will be waiting for you when you make the pitch or send the email or make the phone call to any other community, because of the way that you work. Or after you make the pitch, they're just going to pick up the phone and go, "Hey, there's somebody did something up your way. Oh, what's going on? How the wife? How the kids? Well, okay, so how you work with them? What? And if it's good, then it's good. If it's bad, you're gonna get that, oh no, not this time, we made fun. It's guaranteed to happen. So, and all of us know that. Marcus.
Yeah, no, thank you all so far. That just alone has been really good. We actually were talking about that a little bit in the previous training that we just had, meaning it was about MIPA. But yeah, I know that was one of the things that we kind of hold as a pillar within the center, is just making sure that we involve people of lived experience. Like, how can you work with people living with HIV and not involve people living with HIV, right? So that lived experience, making sure that you're connecting with the community in ways that are, what I'm saying, getting the information. So there's like this mutual learning Like I think both Sharonda and T. Walker said, like, you can't pick up what's working here in Winston-Salem and think it's gonna work in Durham, or think it's gonna work in Charlotte, or think it's gonna work in Louisiana, rural Louisiana. Like, you're talking about different metros, different states, different dialects, different regions. They have so many different things. And so I think this is a really rich conversation. And I think the people that we have on probably already know some of this, but I think that this will be a good reminder. And yeah, thank you all for again highlighting the community engagement piece and how important it is.
And I think one thing, and I got you, Ty. One other thing about this conversation is the fact of that as you move with this work, uh, that there's that ability to be able to adapt. And this goes back to that conversation with John about like having basic standard procedures, but then there's a secret sauce. And that secret sauce comes from experience. Each time you do this, there's a thing that you're not going to be able to write in a book about the way that you made a thing work. But what you can is you can capture what it is you built and you can kind of blueprint it out. But there's a way about it that is, and that's why mentorship is so important, because your mentors are the ones who are like, yeah, but this is the way that's going to play out. And be prepared for this. Oh yeah, definitely that stuff. But just in case this doesn't go the way you want, this is how you pivot. And you'll be writing forever trying to capture that. So there's a wealth of experience that is about the ability to adapt and adjust in real time that is so valuable. Um, it will always be valuable to you. And that creates an impression, because that also will be a thing that people will know. Folks, everybody's watching for something different from y'all as y'all move. And they will celebrate and talk about and commend different things, which paints a full picture that when people hear it from different places, they're like, oh, yeah, because I've heard about your professionalism, heard about your care, I've heard about your vision, I've heard about your timeliness, your responsiveness. That creates the impression that, okay, you're somebody in this project and whatever you put out, like, let's see what it is. Ty?
Kind of hit on it actually. The to adapt. I was hearing what Marcus was saying. You have to have your plan of action, but you can't be married to your plan of action. The difference is the difference. It sounds like I'm playing word salad, but I'm not. It's really important to know the difference. As you point out, Louisiana. I'm from New York, to be all cleared out. But Dasan knows I did a bunch of HIV work in West Virginia, in the Appalachians. I had to learn how to move what we would do here in New York and DC into the Appalachians. It was part of the process of working with the people who citizens of these small towns in West Virginia and Tennessee. Is what works? How do we communicate what works for them? And then sometimes they go, that does not work. We have to find a whole new way and create a whole new rubric to get that to work. So it definitely is about having your standards, having your plan, and then being willing to let that plan go, expand that plan, mitigate that plan, or learn more from the community that you're working with to better your plan, which then you can take to somewhere else. Because I've done that before, where I learned in a community and then taken that information and applied it in a whole other city. Like, oh, this is a similar argument or a similar challenge, excuse me, that needs to be worked out with what I learned in West Virginia. I can now apply in Ohio or Georgia. I leave this to humble part, but go ahead, Derek. I'm sorry.
Derek.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, number one, thank you all for taking the time and being here with us. And then Dasan, I wanted to ask if you would put me in touch with each of the brothers and sisters here. And T. Walker, I just wanted to say, keep doing your work, brother. I've had an opportunity to see and check you do great work at Lyrics by the Lake. So keep pushing.
Much love, family. I appreciate that for sure. We'll be in touch.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Yes, I will make sure to do that. Derek's dope, and a good brother, and I will make sure to make that connection as well. And in that vein, I think one of the things, and I know John has brought this up, and we've had this conversation in previous calls, just about those folks working with you in that team, right? Because that team is an extension of you. It is an extension of your brand, and all of you have had an experience of working with team members and folks of various ages, like your peers, as well as bringing on younger folks, and also have had the experience of also navigating spaces and working in collaboration with folks who are older than you. And so let's talk a little bit about the way that you think about and approach um, how you build your teams and how you build your collaborators, and like how you manage that. And let's be transparent about the reality of having to not work with folks or not work with folks again, because I know sometimes that can be a hard decision when those are folks that you're in community with. But like your mindset about getting to the place where you are able to both make that decision and also how you articulate that, like, yeah, you this we can't do this together no more. Whoever wants to have that conversation first.
All right, so I'll kick it. I'm in a new space now where I am. So I work in a number of different teams, and in different sectors. And in that, I trust those people. But then there's other spaces where people need me, sometimes, and I'm apprehensive because it's like, how you had those group projects in school sometimes, and you find yourself as a part of a group and you end up doing all of the work because you've had this experience. And I have to, let these sometimes like groups know, like, I'm not here to do all of the work. I'm here to be a part of a collective or a group. I want to be able to trust that you're going to fulfill this mission. And there's been times where I've been burnt with that. So I've had to relearn trust and sometimes relinquish some power. In the beginning, where I was talking about how I've had to try to do all of these different things, the marketing, finding the money, the teaching, the hosting of an event, booking, and things of that nature. Sometimes I have to open myself back up to trust. And it's because I'm in a different space of alignment and I have different types of people around me. It was great to hear, Derek say that he's had that experience at Lyrics by the Lake, because that team that puts that together is an extension of me. And I want that extension of me to be able to draw in the other people that I'm looking for and to connect with. So that aspect has been an interesting aspect, but as long as you continue to do the work, you're gonna draw in, those people, that you need. And it's tough, because so Dr. Dudley, before he transitioned, before the pandemic, he used to have these mastermind meetings in his home at his mansion in Kernersville. So he would allow people to just openly come in there. And we had this conversation one day. He was saying, sometimes you got to be fine with people doing 80%. He said, because you are the 100%, and nobody's going to put into it what you want to put into it. And I struggled with that after that conversation for so long, because I'm like, I don't need anybody that's going to do 80%. I need that 100. But then sometimes I had to realize, like, all right, maybe I need a person that's going to give 90, because I understand they don't even have the same idea and it's not from their heart, at the same time. And I do have to remind myself to be okay with that. Everybody is not giving it the exact same thing. But if I can get that 90, if I get that 85, at minimum, maybe, and understand that we are also human, we aren't the same person.
That's it.
That's something I've been sitting with a lot more as I'm rebuilding certain team structures, right now. Some things are working well and that's already rolling. So I get to look at these other teams and these situations that I'm a part of and be like, okay, what built this? What were the questions that I asked? What were the questions that were asked of me, that brought me in, that made me stay, that made this person stay, that made them give it their all, that made them bring in their expertise and resources. And I've been sitting with that real heavy for the past year. So that's the space I'm in with it. And I am drawing in those right people, but I've been having to be okay with 85% also.
Yeah, I think for me, when I first was getting started, and even probably now, I go to the people I trust first, even if they don't know what I'm doing. Because it's easier for me to train you and teach you how to do what I need you to do than it is for me to build trust with somebody who already know how to do it, but I might not know them. So for me, my team building often starts with people I trust, and then I teach them what I need so that at least I know my core group of people are people that I could trust and train. Um, and then from there, build outside of that circle, right? Um, for me, it's quite simple. You're really not going to play with my face. You're really not going to play on my name. I work really hard to maintain this beautifully clean face. And if I can't do something and I bring you in to cover me and you don't show up or you show up late or you're not professional, that's it. Ain't no another chance because I might not get another chance with this client. You know what I'm saying? Also, I hear people say, oh, you can't judge people by what they did to somebody else. You need to find out for yourself. Nah, I don't operate like that. Depending on what it is, you ain't got to do it to me. So depending on what the offense that I've heard about you, it's just some people I'm not going to go there with because to me, I don't know if it's a African American thing. I'm not really sure if it's a Black thing. But you don't always have to learn by going through. You can also learn by listening. You can also learn by watching. You can also learn by looking at what has been done already and not even putting yourself in a position to have it done to you, depending on what the offense is, obviously. So some things for me weigh heavily than others. If I find out you were stealing, somebody tell me you were stealing multiple people, you dead. I'm not working with no thieves. If somebody tell me you habitually and chronically late and you don't show up, or multiple people say you didn't pay them, you could count your days because those are offenses that could get me cut off from whomever I'm trying to work with. So it's important to have discernment and it's important to know your boundaries and your limits and the things that you decide are deal breakers because some of those things are going to come through doing, but some of those things you can learn through other people. You can hear it. You don't have to experience that in order to say, okay, yeah, that person like that. Or in order to say, okay, yeah, that's going to go down like that. So for me, those are the three things. I start with people I trust. Like I started this company with people I trusted, and then I taught them and I trained them and they learned. And then I started hiring outside teaching artists. Then I started hiring people I saw, moving how I move. And then two, I ain't got to learn by doing these days. I'd have been there. I'd have done that. It's harsh. It could be a game changer. So use your discernment. Watch how people move with other people. Watch how people treat other people. Watch how people handle their business. And then that way, it'll help you not get them caught up in your business. Or on the flip side, it'll help you know who is going to help you reach the levels or the goals that you are setting for yourself and for your clients and for the communities that you're servicing.
I'm gonna give a little secret sauce away. So, and you've heard me say this before, probably, Dasan. I think with how can I put it? I'm trying not to repeat what T and Sharonda said because they hit on so many of the good points. But if I do, I apologize. Part of what goes through my head with teaching staff or teaching anyone is what are we doing? Who is doing it? When are we doing it? Where are the assets for we doing it? Why are we doing it? And how are we doing it? When I don't do that, things get awry. I get confused. The sound probably gonna start laughing. I'm a bit of a control freak. And
You're a
to
New Yorker.
oh no, it's not New Yorker. It's not New Yorker. This is no, this is beyond New York. I just don't like because I don't like to lose. I'm a person who likes to include everyone, even the way I play basketball. But to do all that, I have to know what, who, when, where, why, and how. I have to know all these things. And so when working with other people, part of my job is to set up some rules about how are we doing these things? Why are we doing these things? That anyone who have children, you all know some of the most important questions are where were you, why are you doing it, and where is this thing? Those are the first three things you should ask them. Where is the broom? What time were you home from school? where is that homework that your teacher gave you 2 weeks ago? How come you don't have that information that was in your booklet that the teacher said she gave you 3 weeks ago? And how come you haven't slipped out? I mean, these are the questions you ask children, adults, actually ask your partners. And so what I try to do now, but I don't want to be parochial to anyone, is really setting up as much as possible. What are the guidelines toward a situation so everyone could be in some kind of similar place? It doesn't always work out that way because chaos happens because we're always in the middle of doing 10,000 things. And sometimes expediency will beat a process. But when I can have a process, my process is to get people into some guides. Because once you have the guides, you can work around. If you're an MC and you're rhyming to it, having a beat to rhyme to allows you to create a flow versus just coming outside of your head. If you're a musician, there are rules on what notes, what structure, what stanzas, all these things, and that's how you can create the flow within it. And when you have more people involved besides yourself, having this structure allows the other people to feel comfortable within your piece. So I'm always trying to figure out how to make people more comfortable, but the comfort comes when you have answered the other questions. If I can teach the guidelines to answer other questions, then that comfort comes after we get more things done. But life is lifing, chaos is always ensuing. 6 times out of 10, you can't do that. You have to figure out how to work within the chaos. But when you can come up with rules or guidelines, I like guidelines better than rules. Because rules and control sounds familiar. I'm always saying it's white supremacy. I'm sorry, whoever might be white in here, but they feel oppressive. They feel oppressive, but guidelines allow you to move within them. I mean, I try to do that. And what something Walker and Richardson said about finding people who really want to do the work. I think I'm encapsulating what you both said, who you can trust. That's such, man, that's what's that thing? Priceless. This is priceless. You find people you can trust to do the work with, it becomes really priceless. And I find that's not even an age thing or a gender thing or a race thing. It's a real thing of finding folks you can trust to do the work. And those people, though, I will say this: the people you trust who can do the work the best, be prepared they won't stay there long. Not because you're bad, because those people who are that good are also thinking about what they can build for themselves and usually go on to build something beautiful on themselves. So when you have those folks, cherish them because their time there is limited, and you're going to be mad because they're going. You're going to be mad because, man, I wish you had that person back, but then they built something beautiful somewhere else to help the people. The great people
Yeah.
notice that.
Yes. 2 quick points. Beautiful point. Beautiful. 2 quick points and then another question, and then we'll start to wrap up. One point is just off of what Ty said, which is a great thing about the way you work. That recognition of being able to identify the right people and having and building that chemistry, being able to get some wins together, knowing that they're going to go on to build things, is also how you continue to find new opportunities because those folks know you and they know how you work. So when they are in position, you can best believe you're going to get a call and you're going to be asked to come work with them the same way you brought them to work with you. And this is how this thing continues to grow and your work and your projects continue. Um, because it's not just the people you serve and the people that you collaborate with or who sponsor you, but the folks that you brought in to work with you, that opportunity and the way that moves, also they leave with that appreciation and your network starts to feed you back. So there's this thing. And it becomes beautiful because they go to work. And this is that cadre, that mentorship, like building that network because they'll go and they'll hit you up like, this is what I'm dealing with. What's your advice? And like you helping them make that work means that they're in better position to then like you're building. The second thing that I wanted to mention was I saw this quote and I was going to share it, but the person that the quote is attributed to, there's a lot of scrutiny about whether this is a real person or not. But they had made this interesting point about distinguishing professionalism and excellence by then they call professionalism to be a sense is the to be rewarded for a sense of obedience, whereas excellence is what you want to shoot for because it is on your own terms. It is way more dynamic and way more impressive and impactful to strive and continue to strive for excellence. And I was like, that distinction was pretty dope, even if who knows who knows who this guy is. That's supposed to be like this neurosurgeon, but like that idea that this sense of professionalism, especially for us as folks of color, comes with a lot of weight in terms of what people expect that to be. But what I do know is that when we show up in our excellence, regardless of what people's perception of professionalism are, they are won over by the way that by the way that we are excellent, and it expands their understanding. Sometimes it can be a little tokenizing because then they just fall in love with you, right? And we got to navigate that sometimes. But still, I just wanted to offer that, like, that sense of professionalism that can become that you this cognitive white supremacy, like that comes with some things that we don't have to accept, right? But if we're excellent, like if we are our best and we are excellent and we seek that and expect that, and it goes back to T and that being comfortable with 80%. Like him being excellent is 100%. That person being excellent in this moment that T has created may be 85, it may be 90. But what everybody understands is what it means to show up and be excellent. So when that person is somewhere else, they may be able to be 100%, but it had to be modeled for somebody somewhere. And so with that, with this last question, that all three of you, which is why I asked you to be here, are also folks who move and work with a certain politic, right? Like there are certain things that you believe for and you stand for and you carry that with you, right? And I've never seen either any of you compromise that, regardless of the work you're doing or who you're working with or whatever community it is. And so I know this cohort, I've got to learn this cohort over the last few months, and I know all of them are also folks who have a real sense of who they are, what they believe, and what they stand for. We've had those conversations. So I think it'd be important to close if each of you would just give some thoughts and advice about what it means to work while also carrying that politic with you, that sense of who you are and what you stand for and what you believe in, and how you're able to like maintain that and navigate that, and how that factors into the decisions about who you're working with and what that really.
Well, I'm a black man, and I'm gonna let you go ahead.
Thank you. Again, for me, it just feels good to never have to go as somebody else. I can't explain how good it feels to always be able to show up as myself. Also, carrying it means knowing that there are going to be some things that you would love to do, but you just can't do. And contrary, some things that you're going to get because of the things you do. So it's just learning that being authentically you comes give and take. You're going to lose some because of that. You're going to win some because of that. But for me, whether I win or lose, it's always worth it if I can just show up as myself. Dasan knows we had a situation recently and he's in my inbox like, no, you know, we don't do this. Da, da, da. And I'm like, I'm from Pompano and we do this, and I can't get with this because they think this poetry stuff is crazy. And you really have to think about it, because coming as me means I like to say I'm a bottom of the iceberg woman, right? And it's not my job to teach people to free dive. But because of that, the layers that are you are going to all come in place at some point in time, and you have to be fully aware of who you are. So for me, just the ability to always come as I am is worth the risk of not being able to come at all. I'd rather not come at all if I can't come as myself. I tell you all the time, if I'm going to like this, like an event that's you're supposed to dress up. My question is always, do I need to wear heels? Because if I gotta wear heels, I'm gonna stay to the crib because I don't do heels. I'm gonna wear my flats or I'm gonna wear my sneaks. So if I'm not allowed to wear either one, it's cool that this space might not be for me. So even down to the smallest things, often we get caught up thinking about these big, grandiose ideas that coming as you are means such a big stage. No, it's small things like, do I gotta wear heels? Do you expect me to wear makeup? Do you expect what you expecting of me so that I can know if I can provide you what you needed? And if I can't, no matter how much I want to go or how much it's something I want to do, then I would just forego that experience so that I can always show up for myself and as myself.
See,
I'm a black man with locks, so there's already an energy, you know, that's in spaces when I come in there if people don't already know me. But like you said before, Sharonda, you know, it's about knowing your boundaries, you know. So I know what spaces I want to work in. I know what my mission is, and I know the people that I want to align with. And my only thing is to stand on that, you know, because I also have students, you know, that I work with that I have this experience now of being able to show them what that looks like. And I take on that responsibility because I know that they have things that they want to fulfill. My 3-year-old daughter has things that she, you know, is going to want to fulfill. And I need to constantly be that person that shows them what it's like to stand on business or turn down things, you know, or not be a part of things, you know, or um, let people know what needs to happen. You don't come in here and do this because this is not what we're going to accept, you know, in here as well, you know, or we not going to be a part of that. We don't have we don't want anything to do with that because that's not what we do here. And it ain't even hard. You know, it's not hard at all because you'll find that those spaces that you it was something that was said when I came. I think I don't know if it was in the beginning or if it was about losing people. Lose them early. You know, the people that you're not going to work with, lose them early. You know, that type of stuff that happens is a beautiful thing because if not, it turns into baggage. And I don't even really have space for baggage. You know, there's already enough going on in my politic, in my life, in being a black man. So that's that. You know, you just got to know what it is that you want. And I think it's like key to have those boundaries and know what you're not dancing outside of.
would you like to add any, would you like to add anything?
Um, Trying to narrow it down to a couple of words. So damn, I'm trying to do it. I'll tell the story. Um, I'm an old
That's right.
Jamaican. I'm an old Jamaican, so always got a story to tell. So recently, in politics, I've noticed there's a want to adapt some of the tools of Mr. Trump, where you kind of tell two truths. For example, T. Walker has locks. T. Walker is black. T. Walker is Bob Marley's nephew. I mean, you drop two truths, you drop a lie. People believe that the two truths will then lead you to the third truth. I say that because intentionality and earnest want for an earnest outcome is as important as anything else we do with this work. If it's not coming from an earnest place, and eventually it comes across as bullshit, or it becomes another tool for oppression, or it falls apart because it wasn't built on foundations that were strong enough. I'm listening to I kind of remember Sharonda. I just met Walker, and the two things I've gotten from the conversation is that they are showing up not just for themselves earnestly, but for the communities they want to serve earnestly. If you can come there, it mitigates you doing things that are false. It mitigates you cutting corners when you don't have to. It mitigates you not putting your best foot. Because sometimes your best foot forward is half a foot. Because, well, you know what? That's all I got right now. All I have is paper plates and some spoons. But we having chicken. We're gonna make this work with these spoons and this chicken, some napkins, and we're gonna make it work. Because that's what you have. Versus, I'm bringing some spoons and plates because I gave all the real silverware to Ty and Dasan to bring back to the crib. There's a difference in that. And I'm always ending every conversation I have with people around community work, around politics, is that the reason why I don't have a lot of money is that I refuse to play the game. I'd rather be an artist who's making a little middle class living than a rich political wonk who is stealing from the people. Because my intentions are, I really believe that what we are doing is meant to help people, it's meant to save people, and it's meant to be part of the part of the solution and not part of the oppression. So my ask is that as you move through this, be willing to know that you may sometimes, I think Sharon just said it, all money ain't good money, all actors ain't good actors, all people ain't good people, and you'll know by their intentions. Sometimes it takes longer than a little bit, sometimes it takes shorter than a lot of bit, but be prepared to know that. And sometimes, I hate to say it, you might lose a friend or 20, but your intentionality is all that you really have. When it's all said and done, what people will get, oh man, Dasan did this panel, but they're gonna say, when the panel was serious because it showed me some things I can use because they felt it was beautiful. And beautiful in this sense really is about intention. Beautiful is about why he did it. Beautiful is about the people who came on here and gave their time because they meant to do it because they cared enough. Hell, I even forgot. I was working, forgot. I was working, forgot I was supposed to be here. Working
I
on
had just
something.
woke up from a nap. I was like, oh snap.
Right. But I'm glad that, text came to remind me, right, this is something I wanted to do. This is a beautiful reason. And not just about HIV, but it's about anything you do that helps the people come from a place of earnest intentionality.
Yeah. And one of the things to close us down, I think this panel is that all three of these folks, and I'm having to be reminded. I got folks close to me in my ear. I was just having a conversation about this yesterday, that sometimes that concern about how this will all play out and how this will all work in terms of your ability to be able to take care of you and yours, it will work itself out, because this how you move is the seed that's planted that will blossom and grow when you need it to. You might not always see it, but it's going to be waiting for you if you just keep pushing forward. But and it's going to show up for you in a way that you would never have imagined because of the mark. Like, this is about impact. And so for everybody here, that thing about saying yes and no and making those decisions can be hard when you need, right? But also, um, the way you have been moving is what is going to make a difference in someone showing up when you need to provide you exactly what's going to get you through. Um, Not moving the way that you need to move is the quickest way to find yourself alone and isolated. Because when you need, all them transactional situations and relationships are never going to show up for you. And you just going to drown. So that's the difference between transaction and authentic and sincere and considerate and compassionate relationships. Like, and folks are watching. And so I just want to keep that in mind, because I was reminded of that myself, that that is a part of this, right? If you are, I said that I would rather have an uncertain future and organize now than to have a disorganized now and a certain future. Because there is that disorganized now and a certain future is a train wreck waiting to happen. And when it happens, you're gonna look up and everybody has gone the other way. But to have an organized now and an uncertain future, that future is gonna work out, because the way that you are moving is going to be the determining factor. And there are going to be folks waiting and are going to show up who are going to remember, circle back around because of the way you move. So no, I don't want anybody to ever lose sight of that. So, all right. I appreciate y'all. Anybody have any last questions? Ty had to jump off. Did anybody have any last questions before we close?
Yeah, so Dasan, can you talk a little bit more, or explain a little bit more about what the last thing you just said, like a disorganized now and a something future, or
Yes.
vice versa?
Yes. So how this conversation was happening is we were talking about someone who is an amazing, like, is really good at what they do. But um they, like, the way that they work, hugely transactional, very reactionary, and it's chaotic. Because what they're trying to do is they're trying to maintain control over what's next. Problem is it goes from being a safety net to being a barrier, because they can't ever envision a different future, because their now is chaotic. right? And so the build, right? The build, the grow, you're on a hamster wheel. And that's what we're talking about. Like you find yourself on a hamster wheel. All you're doing is treading water, right? And the person that was talking to me said it's a boat on the water with holes in it. It's still sailing, but for how long? Right? Like there's only so much time before there's too much water in the boat and it's gonna sink, right? And you can you can try to make it to shore beforehand, or you can just plug the holes, right? So, and that's why I said I would rather have it organized now in a certain future, which means I may not know what's next, but I know the work I'm putting in right now, and I know the way that I'm putting in work right now, and that if I do that, then the opportunity that's waiting for me is going to be waiting for me because the work I'm putting in now. And the person was like, well, that's how that works, and that's how that's been working. Is that and it's someone who, and so that was what I meant by that. Like that was the conversation. It's like, and I was talking to and one last example, because Ty says he's an old Jamaican. I'm an old Southerner, so I can get lost in anecdotes too. But we had a panel at this festival, and a long-standing person in the entertainment industry who had worked at Rockefeller Records, worked with Robin Thicke and Nappy Roots and all of these folks, said the same thing. He was like, the now is the thing because tomorrow will be your new now. So like, how are you training yourself to operate right now? Because that future will be here before you know it. And what's going to set you up for success is when it's your now that you are equipped to operate in the now. But otherwise, if your brain is in the future, then you're overlooking what is going to equip you to maximize that future because you're so concentrated on that future. And it can limit you. That's that idea that we talk about a lot of times is that scarcity mindset. There's so many organizations who are so worried about the future that they diminish their now and then complain about circumstances that they've created for themselves. And then it in the funding world, you mess around and start next thing you know, you get less because you overachieving with less. And it's like because you created the circumstance that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy that now this is your reality and there is no more. Or people will tell you there's no more. And it's like there was. Or there could be. So we all gotta fight that. But it's hard when you out here surviving. But trust and believe that good thing is waiting for you. So keep that in mind, y'all. Right? Keep that in mind. Right? Your present is going to determine your future, but equip yourself for moving now. And I know everybody's kind of both thinking about this project you're completing, but also the future of that project. Make sure that what you're doing right now is going to set the stage for where your project goes. And all of the panelists are a testament to that. Like I've seen them work, and then had conversations with later, and I've seen each one of them tell me, "Oh, I just got reached out to by," and then someone said, and because of the way they showed up in the moment, and it set up everything next. And so that then they're equipped to make the most of the opportunity they're being given later. So uh, I appreciate y'all. I'm not gonna hold y'all much longer. Sharonda T. Walker.
Thank you for having me, Dasan.
Yeah.
Good luck on your project, everybody. That last thing that Dasan said is gold. Like,
Yeah.
don't we here because he thinks we've succeeded in something, but I'm almost 13 years in. And for the last 4, maybe 5 is just when I've been full-time doing this thing. So it is a process. Trust the process, and the way you trust the process is by learning how to trust yourself. Thank y'all for having me.
No
Hey,
doubt. I
man, thank
appreciate
you.
y'all for having me and listening to me as well. Dasan, you always know, I love connecting with you and being a part of the things you have going on. So I appreciate this, experience, being able to share some things with y'all and being able to hear from other people. I'm constantly learning as well. So I'm grateful for this experience for sure.
Yeah, and I put links to their websites in here. And Derek, I'll make sure to send you an email.
Okay.
So that y'all connect with him. And y'all, there's of course for all the cohort, there's of course the survey, the link to the survey. Marcus just put it in the chat. So y'all make sure y'all get to that for that. And Sharonda, T. Walker, man, y'all can hop on off, man. I appreciate y'all. Thank y'all. I'll see both of y'all. Talk to both of y'all soon.
T. Walker, Sharonda,
See you soon, Dasan.
Todd, thank
Love.
you all so much.
Thanks,
Thanks.
everybody.
Bye, y'all.
This was definitely great. Yeah, like I do want to invite you all, you know, or Dasan, you can send it to them. We do have a what is it called? We're doing the community building session, but it's with lightning talks. So you should have already gotten a let me stop recording. You